Time to hit the road.
hates hearing this, but he is.
Not even, since we're here in D.C., not even off the record. Like, off the record, that guy was a jerk.
Off the record, we say even better things about him because then he's so humble he doesn't want to hear them.
But one of the things you did was, and in all of the podcasts, DVDs, extras I've consumed over the years, I hadn't heard about this before. You organized an annual trip to Vegas?
Yeah. It was our bingo bus party, our Christmas gift to all of the people that you normally do not see on camera. they call them extras. I hate that term. And so we wanted to celebrate them every Christmas. And so I would rent, I started with one bus, and by the second season we were 2 buses, and we'd play bingo in the bus as we get to Vegas.
Yeah.
And everybody wins some money, and while we're in Vegas, they all lose it. So I realized, wait a minute, we better have bingo going home as well. So we put that into the mix. Yeah, it was one of the most satisfying things. It was great fun.
And now you see why there's so much love for this man, and that was part of the joy of writing this book. This is a real book for the fans, for the wingnuts, and for the people who really want to get a sense of us as a family, too.
In the spirit of the book, I want to ask both of you a few favorites, and Melissa, I'll start with you. What's your favorite episode?
There are so many, it is really hard for me to say, but I love In Excelsis Deo. I think that is a beautiful episode, and the themes of that, what we owe those who have given so much to our country. It's the one about the veteran and Toby, and everyone knows that episode because it's so beautifully done.
Listen, this isn't a crime scene, is it?
No, sir.
I got the call an hour ago. I went to the coroner's office and just wondering where the body's lying.
An ambulance will come by. It's not a hot crime.
And then you're gonna call the VA, right?
Yeah.
Tattoo on his forearm. It's Marine Battalion, the 2nd and 7th. This guy was in Korea.
Yeah, my overall favorite, hands down, is In Excelsis Deo. And my brother Mike was a combat Marine in Korea, and I just could not stop thinking of him. Still hard to talk about.
A homeless man died last night, a Korean War veteran who was wearing a coat I gave to the Goodwill. It had my card in it.
Toby, you're not
Took an
responsible.
hour and 20 minutes for the ambulance to get there. A Lance Corporal, United States Marine Corps, 2nd of the 7th. I got better treatment at Panmunjom.
Toby, if we start pulling strings like this, you don't think every homeless veteran will come out of the woodwork?
I can only hope so.
My favorite episode is probably Against 17 People, when Toby figures out that the president is hiding a big secret. But I recently rewatched the episode where that all comes to a head. 2 Cathedrals, where President Bartlett is debating whether or not to run for another term.
I think the president has got to strongly consider not running for re-election.
I think you're the first one to say it. You are at minimum the 35th in the last 2 hours.
Well, we're the ones that talk to you now, and we're the ones that are asking. Is the president going to run for re-election?
And I watched this the other day, and I just could not get over how line for line so many scenes in that episode could have applied to what we saw just play out with President Biden and Vice President Harris and this decision of whether or not to run for another term.
It was the most courageous decision that I've ever seen a politician make in my lifetime.
Why is that?
Because he took the most powerful office in the world and he made it human. And he put it before his own ambition, before his own legacy. And clearly, he enhanced his legacy. We should all give thanks and praise as a grateful nation to that man.
Though as he wrestled with the decision, as far as we know, he did not curse at God in Latin. So, there's that.
Who knows? We were not there.
That's true. I have. Last thing I want to ask both of you, when you close your eyes and think of the West Wing experience a quarter century later, what to you is the West Wing in just a moment that snapped in your head?
The theme.
Yeah.
I cannot hear that theme and not go right into it. And all those extraordinary young faces appear, and then it all flows back with gratitude and praise. I just can't believe that I was part of it.
I see the people and the family that was created from that show. That's been one of the greatest gifts of my whole life. And, Mary and I really we hoped that we would write a book that, we said if the West Wing was a love letter to public service, then what's next is a love letter to the West Wing, the army of people it took to make it, the fans who loved it, and the people who were inspired by it. And we hope that we honored our time together, and we hope that the wingnuts love it. But I think that we were most nervous about Martin loving it. So.
And it seems like he hates it, so it's really
Yes.
awkward.
I ought to.
It's Martin Sheen and Melissa Fitzgerald of The West Wing. The book about the show, which Melissa co-wrote with Mary McCormick, is called, I'm going to say the name right here, but actually I'm wondering if, Martin Sheen, you could say the name since it's based on your most famous line of dialogue on the show.
What's next?
Thanks to both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is NPR News.
And at 5:29, it's All Things Considered on News 88.7.
Presidential campaign songs go back to George Washington.
The day is broke, my lads, march on and follow, follow Washington.
Ronald Reagan started the trend of using pop songs.
And I'm proud to be an American, where it is night.
The history of campaign music and analysis of the Democratic Convention on the next morning edition of NPR News.
Coming your way, 5 o'clock tomorrow morning on News 88.7, right after that.
Longtime Houstonians have strong opinions about things you should and shouldn't do in the Bayou City. I'm Craig Cohen. We welcome yours at talk@HoustonMatters.org and hear a few Houston do's and don'ts from a trio of longtimers on the next Houston Matters.
Tomorrow morning at 9.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from Theater Under the Stars, launching the brand new national tour of Dear Evan Hansen. On stage September 10th through the 22nd at Theater Under the Stars. Tickets are available at tuts.com.
Support comes from the University of Houston Downtown, presenting jazz artist, trumpeter, and Grammy Award winner Terrence Blanchard live for UHD, November 9th at Cullen Performance Hall. Tickets at uhd.edu.
28 and a half hours left in that excessive heat warning, but who's counting? Right now it's 100 degrees with the heat index of 108 here at the UH campus and 5:30.
Live from NPR News in Culver City, California, I'm Dwayne Brown. In the Middle East, the U.S. Secretary of State met with allies to urge Hamas to accept a ceasefire deal that Israel has agreed to in Gaza. More than 10 months after the militant group attacked Israel and captured hostages, Secretary Anthony Blinken says time is of the essence because every passing day, there's danger of escalation in the region.
With our partners in Egypt and Qatar, our message is simple, it's clear, and it's urgent. We need to get the ceasefire and hostage agreement over the finish line, and we need to do it now.
Secretary Blinken says once Hamas agrees to the proposal, they will have to also get agreement on how to move forward with it. The U.S. has long opposed any long-term occupation of Gaza by Israel. One of the former Minneapolis police officers convicted in the 2020 killing of George Floyd left prison today. Matt Sepik of Minnesota Public Radio tells us Thomas Lane received the shortest sentence of the 4 officers involved.
A federal jury convicted Lane of violating George Floyd's civil rights for ignoring his medical needs as Officer Derek Chauvin kneeled on Floyd for more than 9 minutes. Lane later pleaded guilty to a state manslaughter charge. The rookie officer in his Ford Fairlane John can be seen on video pinning Floyd's legs to the ground. Chauvin rebuffed Lane's suggestions to reposition Floyd so he could breathe. Lane served his sentences at a Colorado federal prison and begins a year of supervised release. Former officers J. Alexander King and Tutel are set for release in April. Chauvin isn't out of prison until 2038. For NPR News, I'm Matt Sepik in Minneapolis.
Stocks finished slightly lower on Wall Street, snapping an 8-day winning streak as shares of tech company NVIDIA weighed on the market. This is NPR News.
Live from the Texas newsroom, I'm Katie DeVar. Brutal heat is gripping the state with heat advisories and excessive heat warnings. It's also bringing the issue of climate change to the forefront. Dr. Stephanie Piper with the Houston Advanced Research Center says about 100 volunteers helped record temperature data earlier this month.
Mitigating the
resources and digital tools designed to help local to global companies make moves for their businesses. Learn more at bankofamerica.com/banking for business. From Indeed, designed to be an end-to-end hiring solution for businesses of all sizes to attract, interview, and hire candidates all from one platform. Learn more at Indeed.com/NPR. And from listeners like you who donate to this NPR station.
From NPR News, this is All Things Considered. I'm Elsa Chang in Culver City, California.
And I'm Ari Shapiro in Chicago at the Democratic National Convention. One speaker we are anticipating hearing from tonight is Kate Cox. She filed a lawsuit while facing serious pregnancy complications, asking the state of Texas to allow her to legally receive an abortion. Cox is one of several people sharing their abortion experiences at the convention, as NPR's Selena Simmons-Duffin is here to explain. Hey, Selena.
Hi, Ari.
Kate Cox's story caught people's attention around the country. Remind us what she went through and how it's relevant to this conversation about reproductive rights in the U.S.
Well, Kate Cox lives in Dallas with her husband and 2 young kids. And last fall, when she was pregnant, she was extremely sick, and her fetus had a condition that's almost always fatal. Her doctor said if she continued her pregnancy, it could jeopardize her chance to have a baby in the future. So, as you say, she filed a lawsuit, and the case went quickly before
act of horrific terror, and we have to reject that wholeheartedly. The lost and found, similar to Holocaust memorials, is especially important. Shoes and backpacks fill tables alongside piles of keys and eyeglasses. One of them was a pair of goggles. And I remember picking up one. I had goggles just like this from many years ago. Jeffrey and Hannah Rax came to the memorial with 75 members of their synagogue, Valley Beth Shalom, in Seattle.
Actually seeing physical evidence of real specific people who dropped their contact lens case, who brought a silly pillow with them, and you think, someone picked out that pillow, decided to bring it to a music festival. This is a very specific real person.
A person to honor by remembering them, says Valley Beth Shalom Rabbi Nolan Leibovitz.
To help bear witness and learn the lesson that we've learned as Jews and as human beings, that we need to stand united against this kind of evil so that our kids can grow up in a world where they can trust in humanity.
And live, says Rabbi Leibovitz, rather than fear death. Jason DeRose, NPR News, Culver City.
And you're listening to All Things Considered from NPR News. The groundbreaking 1990s police drama Homicide: Life on the Street is now available to stream. It debuted this week on Peacock, featuring 122 remastered episodes plus a TV movie. NPR TV critic Eric Deggans spoke with its former showrunner on why the show still matters to fans decades later.
Viewers who weren't around when Homicide: Life on the Street rewrote the rules for cop dramas on network TV might look at the 7 seasons of episodes now streaming on Peacock and wonder what all the fuss was about. But that's because many of the storytelling choices they helped pioneer occur much more frequently in today's world of high-quality television. Homicide had a cast filled with non-white characters, an unvarnished look at police work with no car chases or gun battles, and stories where the killers sometimes were never caught. Consider the gritty, no-nonsense feel of this scene. Italian and African-American Lieutenant Al Giardello, played by Yaphet Kotto, shows a rookie detective around the homicide squad, including their interrogation room, which he calls
the box, where we match wits against the city's master criminals. The board, open cases are in red, closed cases are in black. You look up there, you know exactly where you stand. About how many things in life can you say that?
That scene could stand as a mission statement for the show, which focused on cops who argued with each other and run confessions on the suspects in the box to get more black ink under their names. Tom Fontana, who served as an executive producer and showrunner for Homicide, said he and fellow producers Barry Levinson and Gail Muttrix have been trying for years to convince NBC to put the episodes up on a streaming service, only to get the runaround.
And we could never understand why, and we kept getting different reasons from different NBC executives.
In a statement emailed to NPR, NBC Universal noted it took, quote, many years to secure the rights and clearances it needed and to remaster the series for HD and 4K. The episodes on streaming will include most of the original music, which features songs from artists like Miles Davis. NBC Universal also said fan reaction to the deaths last year of Homicide stars Richard Belzer and Andre Brower was another indicator that they should continue working to bring the show to streaming. Fontana says he's glad new audiences will discover work by actors on the show who have since died, including Kotto, Belzer, and Brown.
One side is great because Andre deserves his work on the show, I should say, deserves to be seen again. That's why it's exciting that the series will be seen and hopefully by a whole new generation.
Andre Brower shone as Detective Frank Pimbleton. He was a savvy hotshot with a talent for getting confessions in the box, as he explains to that rookie detective just before starting an interrogation.
Then what you would be privileged to witness will not be an interrogation, but an act of salesmanship. The silver tongue and thieving has ever moved to used cars, Florida swampland, or Bibles. But what I'm selling is a long prison term to a client who has no genuine use for the product.
Montana says the show tried to portray authentic characters in a way that resisted some of the cliches of typical police dramas.
Ultimately, why I think the show feels real, because we were talking about a community of detectives, and we didn't want them all to sound like Dick Tracy or whatever.
And now, thanks to Peacock, a
Kurtzleben is in Michigan and was just at that Trump event. She joins us now. Hi, Danielle.
Hey, Elsa.
Okay, so what message would you say the Trump campaign is sending today?
Well, today he was talking about crime, and he spoke at a county sheriff's department, so really underscoring that message with the setting. He was trying to make the case that crime would be lower under him as president than under President Biden, and then it would be under theoretical President Harris. Now, in this speech, he talked about a few things. He talked about giving police immunity from prosecution and also about giving more funding to law enforcement, and those are both things that he has advocated for in the past. He also leaned heavily into crime committed by undocumented immigrants. Really, this was a crime speech, but it was also an immigration speech. And that said, this being Trump, he covered a lot more topics than crime. He meandered a bit. He talked about Afghanistan, he talked about the economy, and he attacked Kamala Harris personally.
Okay, well, of course, the Democratic convention is happening right now, and there were a lot of attacks on Trump last night at the convention. So did he have any responses to that?
Oh, yes. He cited a few speeches specifically. He made it clear that he watched, but also he made this really broad attack about the whole first night of the DNC.
I watched last night in amazement as they tried to pretend that everything was great, the crime was great, the border was great, there wasn't a problem at all, no inflation, no nothing.
So really they're trying to attack Democrats on their big message of joy and unity and positivity. And in recent events, Trump has really been leaning into negativity, really making the case that the country is bad right now and that he would be the person to make it good. Sometimes today getting into downright lurid descriptions of rape and other violent crimes. Now, one other thing you could hear from that clip there, this wasn't rally Trump today. He was pretty subdued compared to the Trump that we're used to seeing on TV. Now, that may have been the smallest venue he chose. He just didn't have the big crowd to feed off of.
That's interesting. Well, all of this is part of a sweep through different swing states that Trump is doing this week, right? Like one might call it his counter-programming of the DNC. Tell us more about his plans this week as the DNC is going.
Sure, so he's been doing a few events like this, and the events thus far haven't been huge. He did a small event at a manufacturing business in York, Pennsylvania yesterday. Today he was in what an officer told me was a storage building at a local sheriff's department. There were maybe, besides press, 100, 200 people, a pretty small event compared to a typical Trump rally. And each of these events has a theme. Yesterday it was the economy, today it was crime. Tomorrow he and his running mate J.D. Vance will be in Asheboro, North Carolina, talking about national security, and later in the week he will hit Arizona to talk about immigration. The goal of all of these seems to be to hit Kamala Harris and Tim Walz on areas where they think that those Democrats are weak.
Do we know how Trump is choosing the specific places he's speaking at this week?
We don't really, and I was curious about that. I asked the Trump team in particular why he went to Howell, Michigan today, because Howell is a town of around 10,000. It's a place that a lot of people might not have heard of. And the Trump team didn't give me a direct answer, but you can surmise a few things. First of all these events are in swing states, and Trump just does better in rural areas. This area of Michigan is also where Representative Alyssa Slotkin is from. She is the Michigan Senate candidate. Now, critics have noted that Howell has historic ties to the KKK. White supremacists demonstrated there last month. However, when a reporter shouted a question about that today, Trump pointed out that Biden spoke in Howell in 2021.
That is NPR's Danielle Kurtzleben. Thank you, Danielle.
Thank you.
Each week, a well-known guest draws a card from our wild card deck and answers a big question about their life. Simi Nosrat is the force behind the hit cookbook and Netflix series Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat. She's famous for teaching people not just how to cook, but how to have fun while doing it. But her personal life has included a lot of loss. Nosrat told wild card host Rachel Martin about a major shift in her perspective after her father died a few years ago.
1, 2, or 3? 3. What truth guides your life more than any other?
Oh, I mean, I think life is finite. My whole life I've been kind of in this, if I'm good enough and work hard enough and, I don't know, have high enough standards and achieve enough, then eventually something good will happen for me. You know, then eventually, and I've always been in like saving up mindset of both financially and, but also almost like saving up good deeds to cash in for, I don't know what. And then I was like, oh wait, there's no there. There's no thing that you get to where then, you're paid back, you know, or the huge welcome into the palace and now you've earned a good life happens. Like, this is it. This is my body, my one body. This is my one life. And so I've often had this kind of mentality of like almost a self-punishing of I have to just no. Like everyone else is going on a camping trip. Like, well, there are people who take days off, but not me. Like, I have to put my head down and keep working. But it's not like those work days are incredibly, like, you know, productive. I'm often like so sad I'm not with my friends or something. And and also only working or only being hard on yourself doesn't ever really lead anywhere good. So certainly by the time my dad died, I really sort of reoriented. And maybe less than a month after my dad died, two of my best friends had a baby on the East Coast, and they invited me to the baby naming ceremony, which was a thing I normally wouldn't do. I wouldn't just like drop everything and buy a ticket, like a super expensive last minute ticket to go to the East Coast for the ceremony or whatever. But then I was like, wait a minute, what is life for? There was a clarity of like, oh, I don't need to say no to all these things. There's only one baby naming ceremony. You know, there's only one opportunity to go be with the people who I care about. And I think I've really sort of come into this awareness of time is the most precious currency in our lives.
That's Chef Samin Nosrat talking with NPR's Rachel Martin. For more conversations like this one, follow the Wildcard podcast.
Support for Wildcard with Rachel Martin comes from Angie, dedicated to helping homeowners find skilled pros to get their home projects done well. From everyday repairs to major remodels. Reviews, pricing, and booking are at Angie.com or on the Angie app.
You're listening to All Things Considered from NPR News.
Support for NPR comes from the station and from Mathnasium, committed to making math fun and building confidence so students can achieve their potential this school year, offering customized math instruction and individual attention to students in grades K through 12. Mathnasium.com. From Progressive Insurance with its Name Your Price tool, a way to see coverage options based on a driver's budget. Learn more at progressive.com or 1-800-PROGRESSIVE. Price and coverage match limited by state law. From Amazon Music, Prime members have access to a catalog of news podcasts ad-free, breaking news without the breaks. Available by downloading the Amazon Music app or visiting amazon.com/ad-free. And from the listeners who support this NPR station.
We're a minute away from 6 on a Tuesday evening here on your NPR station, News 88.7. And on the freeway, South Loop 610 westbound at the exit to South Post Oak, we see a fairly new wreck in the left lane there. And heading out on the North Freeway, northbound 45 before Cypress Wood, that wreck has been cleared from the right lane.
Support comes from Comcast Business. From Main Street to Wall Street, Comcast Business provides business solutions ranging from cybersecurity solutions to round-the-clock partnership, powering possibilities. Restrictions apply.
Sunset at 7:57, clear overnight with a low around 82. Tomorrow's sunrise at 6:53. That excessive heat warning staying with us at least until 10 o'clock tomorrow night, if not a little bit longer. We'll get up to around 100 again with heat index values right around 112. Currently it's 100 with heat index of 108 here at your NPR station, KUHF Houston News 88.7, a service of the University of Houston at 6 o'clock.
I might even cry just even talking about this. I didn't think somebody who grew up like me could get here.
Hundreds of social media creators are in Chicago covering the DNC, and we'll meet one who's speaking at the convention tomorrow.
For Tuesday, August 20th, this is All Things Considered from NPR News.
I'm Ari Shapiro.
And I'm Elsa Chang. This hour, how has the change at the top of the Democratic ticket affected down-ballot races?
The ability to really prosecute the case against Donald Trump gives us a feeling of real optimism.
Also, Israel has recovered 6 bodies of hostages from Gaza.
Civilians in Ukraine experience what life in the army is like.
And Londoners are figuring out how to respond to a deluge of Taylor Swift fans.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we've ever seen anything quite like this. It's a phenomenon of the Swiftie fandom.
Those stories and more after this news.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Jack Spear. Singer Patti LaBelle kicking things off tonight at day 2 of the Democratic National Convention in Chicago before an appreciative audience. NPR's Amanda Steele reports tonight's speeches feature the long-anticipated remarks of a former First Lady.
Michelle Obama and former President Barack Obama are expected to be among the headlining speakers this evening at the United Center. The Obamas endorsed Harris for president last month after President Biden stepped aside as a candidate. The endorsement was seen as key in securing her nomination. Also expected to take the stage is second gentleman Doug Emhoff. Harris, though, is likely to miss the remarks tonight as she takes to Milwaukee for her rally with running mate Tim Walz. Amanda Bustillo, NPR News, Chicago.
Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer says Kamala Harris's campaign is boosting Democrats' prospects to keep control of the Senate. From NPR's Deidre Walsh.
Schumer says Harris's ability to connect with middle-class voters is helping in key Senate contests. He touts her background as Attorney General in California.
The ability to really prosecute the case against Donald Trump gives us a feeling of real optimism.
The Senate Majority Leader predicted his party will keep their narrow majority and maybe pick up a seat or 2. He says while Biden struggled with selling his legislative accomplishments, Senate candidates can point to specific infrastructure projects and broadband programs. He admitted Democrats won't win in a lot of rural counties, but they can cut down on the GOP's margin. A spokesman for the GOP's Senate Campaign Committee disagreed with Schumer's analysis and is confident that Republicans will retake control of the chamber. Deirdre Walsh, NPR News, Chicago.
A commission investigating the worst mass shooting in Maine history identified multiple missed opportunities by both police and the military to potentially avert the tragedy. Kevin Miller with Maine Public Radio.
The report faults a local sheriff's department for not using Maine's gun seizure law after members of Robert Card's family and his Army Reserve unit raised concerns about its paranoid and aggressive behavior. But the commission says reserve leaders also failed to share critical information with sheriffs and didn't do enough to make sure Card received treatment. Commission Chairman Daniel Wathen, a retired judge, says Card was solely responsible for the shootings.
The commission unanimously found that there were several opportunities that, if taken,
when his grade school music teacher, played by Carol Kane, becomes his new bar mitzvah student. Opens Friday. This is NPR.
From NPR News, this is All Things Considered. I'm Elsa Chang in Culver City, California.
And I'm Ari Shapiro at the Democratic National Convention in Chicago. The party's biggest names are speaking here at the United Center. President Biden last night, former President Obama tonight. Tomorrow's lineup includes former President Bill Clinton, Vice Presidential candidate Tim Walz, and this 21-year-old.
Hi, I'm Olivia Juliana from the internet. Checking. Hi, I'm Olivia Juliana. I'm a activist and content creator from Houston, Texas.
This convention is the first time the DNC has given credentials to content creators. The party describes it as leveling the playing field with traditional media. These are people who have big followings on TikTok, Instagram, and other social media platforms, and who don't necessarily worry about journalistic balance in the same way traditional news outlets do. Research shows more Americans are learning about politics through those platforms. And if there is a hierarchy of political content creators, Olivia Juliana is right up near the top.
Come with me to day one of the Texas Democrat State Convention in El Paso, Texas. What is going on with Michael Christian in the Supreme Court? Is abortion access protected? It's very complicated. We understand that, so I'm going to explain it to you. Well, today, this childless cat and dog lady met with our next president.
She has more than 1 million followers across all the platforms combined. When Republican Congressman Matt Gaetz mocked her appearance 2 years ago, she used her response to raise more than $2 million for a fund that supports abortion access. But even as her profile and her follower counts grew, she never imagined that she would be speaking at the Democratic National Convention.
I might even cry just even talking about this. I didn't think somebody who grew up like me could get here. And
when you say like me, what do you mean?
I grew up very working class. I grew up living in trailer houses and farmhouses, and even once I started doing content, I didn't have enough money to go straight into a four-year university. I went to community college.
We met up with her in a lounge that the DNC set aside for creators, and even as people kept coming up to say how excited they were to meet her, she was starstruck too.
And then it's people who I'm like, oh my gosh, I've never met you. I'm a huge fan. Like, I saw Philip DeFranco at a party last night, and I about threw up from excitement.
I do not know who that is.
That's okay. Philip DeFranco is a YouTuber who I've been watching since I was 12 years old. Oh my God, wait, hold on, sorry.
Suddenly a few guys walk in and they all scream. It's her crew from Houston.
You're like all my favorite people. All my content.
You're all content creators?
All content creators. We literally met through TikTok.
Okay, so how would you describe the difference between what you do and what you do?
I do it better. Just kidding.
As we try to talk, someone pops their head into the creator space and shouts, Olivia! Our interview is interrupted because a staffer wants to make an introduction.
Oh, why? What is happening? I know, I got you. Just what's up? I'm meeting Nancy Pelosi.
Meeting Nancy Pelosi, former Speaker of the House. They shake hands, exchange a few words, pose for a photo. Olivia feels like this was fate.
This is funny, is I'm literally wearing this outfit because if you'll find there is an old picture of Nancy Pelosi speaking at a political event in this hot pink suit. And I've matched my suits each major night to a woman in political history suit. And this is my Nancy Pelosi suit.
When we find a quieter place to sit down, Olivia catches her breath, and I go in with the hard-hitting questions.
So here comes like the moment of truth. What's the caption gonna be?
See, now I have the photo. I must go find the photo of her in the pink suit, the iconic pink suit.
That inspired you to wear this pink suit.
That inspired
you pulled it up in a heartbeat.
Of course, it's bookmarks.
The inspiration photo is from 1992, a decade before Olivia was born. She posts, and we continue the conversation.
As a creator, do you think of yourself more as a journalist, a cheerleader, an arm of the campaign? Tell me how you think of your role.
Yeah, I think every creator is differently, but for me, I very much am, I'm not going to pretend like I'm unbiased, because I'm not, a creator, but I'm also an activist. My number one goal is to persuade people to get involved in politics, to help them understand how the government works.
When Biden passed the torch to Harris and endorsed her, how did you see the content that people
says that the Biden administration's American Rescue Plan allowed her to afford community college.
I told her I'm going to be the first person in my immediate family to graduate from college because of this policy. And, you know, to be a kid who kind of, you know, breaks those generational issues, that's one thing. But to have the Vice President of the United States tell you that she's proud of you and that you need to prioritize your education is a whole other level of, Mama, I made it. You know?
Next week, Olivia Juliana plans to return to college, doing courses online so she can continue her work as a creator. And in November, this 21-year-old will vote for president for the first time ever, a few months after her speech here at the Democratic National Convention.
Ukraine's mass conscription drive continues, but the country still needs more soldiers. Its troops are not only holding the defense of Ukrainian territory, but have also launched an offensive operation in Russia. Many units do their own recruiting to select the best people. One of the elite Ukrainian brigades even offers civilians the opportunity to live and train like soldiers for 1 week. NPR's Polina Litvinova reports from Kyiv.
A group of people in uniform gather on a clearly lit discussion, but not for long. Someone shouts grenade, they all dive to the ground. Moments later, more incoming. One man can't get up, he's holding his leg. His comrades rush to his side and pull him to safety. Then the injured man stands up smiling. It was just a simulation with firecrackers and guns with no bullets. The people aren't soldiers, and this is not the fun part. In fact, we're in Ukraine's heavily defended capital, Kyiv. But the participants want a taste of going into battle before they decide to actually sign up and possibly join one of Ukraine's most storied military units. One of them is 20-year-old construction worker Oleksiy Sichka. He lives far from the front line in the Vinnytsia region in central Ukraine. But he came all the way to the capital because he says if Ukraine doesn't have enough soldiers, the Russians might one day enter his hometown. We are not sure that hostilities won't come to our area, he says. The course called Test Week is organized by one of Ukraine's toughest military outfits, the 3rd Separate Assault Brigade. Marina Kirsanova heard so much about the brigade's exploits from her friends that she decided to take the course. They're so cool, she says. I didn't even expect that everything would be so real. For 7 days, she and other trainees learn how to use weapons, study battlefield medicine, and improve their physical fitness. All the instructors here have real combat experience. Maxim Levchenko helped set up the test week program. He's considered a hero for flying into the besieged port city of Mariupol with medicine, weapons, and other soldiers to hold off the Russians. This is how he serves now, preparing civilians for military service. At the end of the week, participants get feedback on how well they completed tasks, their leadership qualities and teamwork, and on how to improve. This is also an opportunity for the brigade to get new good soldiers, says Volodymyr Daviduk, the head of the brigade's recruitment center in Kyiv. The unit relies mostly on its own recruiting rather than conscription, looking for motivation more than anything else. 2-3 weeks of physical training
exit to South Post Oak and heading in on the Katy eastbound I-10 and West End.
I'm Dr. Bob Maniger with the Ed and Jean Matthews Foundation, and we are proud visionary leaders of the Houston Public Media Affinity Council. We pride ourselves on supporting Houston area nonprofits that provide academic support to our community. Houston Public Media is a long-standing example of these values.
You can help deliver educational programming to our community, and when you give right now, your donation is doubled. Donate at houstonpublicmedia.org or call 888-909-0887.
Support comes from MD Anderson Cancer Center, where a single blood donation at MD Anderson Cancer Center can help make a life-saving difference for cancer patients. Information on donating blood, appointments, and more at mdandersongiveblood.com.
Support also comes from members like you from Downtown Houston Plus, introducing quarterly market reports on the trends happening downtown, including retail openings, visitor trends, and real estate performance. Available under research and reports at downtownhouston.org. From Broadway Bank's commercial banking team, since 1941, committed to helping businesses with their financial needs and growth. More information available at broadway.bank/commercial. Member FDIC. And from Moody Mansion, a restored 28,000 square foot mansion on Galveston's Broadway, furnished with original items and decor from the early 1900s. Open every day for tours. More information at moodymansion.org.
Support comes from the University of Houston Downtown, presenting jazz artist, trumpeter, and Grammy Award winner Terrence Blanchard live for UHD, November 9th at Cullen Performance Hall. Tickets at uhd.edu.
It's All Things Considered on your NPR station, News 88.7 and 620.
Support for NPR comes from this station and from Bank of America, offering access to resources and digital tools designed to help local to global companies make moves for their businesses. Learn more at bankofamerica.com/bankingforbusiness. From Indeed, designed to be an end-to-end hiring solution for businesses of all sizes to attract, interview, and hire candidates all from one platform. Learn more at Indeed.com/NPR. And from listeners like you who donate to this NPR station.
This is All Things Considered from NPR News. I'm Ari Shapiro in Chicago.
And I'm Nelson Chang in Culver City, California. And just a few hours north of here in the Central Valley is California's first new state park in a decade. It just opened this summer, and it reimagines what a state park can be. The park is called Dos Rios, meaning two rivers, because the Tuolumne and San Joaquin rivers merge here. And just upstream from that junction, at the crack of dawn, we meet two conservationists, Julie Redner and Austin Stevenot, under a canopy of majestic oaks. There's a lot of different birds we're hearing, and they're all just waking up with this beautiful sunrise. Oh, I even heard a woodpecker just. Oh my God! How old do you think this one oak tree is?
I've heard things from 300 years to 200 years, so.
These oaks sit on an ancient floodplain, so the plants around here are used to getting their feet wet.
Most of the critters here, the willows, the cottonwoods, the mugworts, are actually stimulated by that occasional flooding.
Just 15 years ago, Dos Rios looked nothing like this. Like much of this valley, it was just acres and acres of farmland.
These floodplains were once laser-level fields that grew alfalfa or a rotation of corn and winter wheat.
So stepping into this park is like stepping into a time machine where the land has been restored to a semblance of what it used to look like centuries ago, before farms, before towns, before all the berms and levees squeezed these rivers into submission. In the last decade, Julie and the nonprofit River Partners, where she's president, have planted some 350,000 native plants here. And they've punched holes in those berms and levees, so when the rivers spill beyond their banks, the water flows freely across this sheet of land, as it did last spring when the rivers rose about 20 feet higher than they are right now.
Just 1 year ago, you can see the watermarks on the tree where the water was, would have been waist-high in water right now.
To the waist. My goodness.
Last June, I could have given you a boat tour through here. And we were doing that. It was about 4 miles wide at the widest.
And Julie says when the floodwaters come back, so do the river otters and beavers and waterfowl. And you know, flooding here means that water can sink into the land, sparing towns downstream.
This place is reducing flood risk for downstream communities by absorbing floodwaters as they pour out of the Sierra Nevadas.
The dangers of flooding in this valley is something that Lilia Lomelí-Gil knows quite well. In 1997, she was living in nearby Modesto when floodwaters ripped through the area.
The water went in 4 feet into my house. We were downriver from the sewage plant, so I go, no, let's get out of here. Okay, and we came back.
It was flooding that forced you to start over in Grayson.
Yes, it still brings tears to my eyes.
In tiny Grayson, right outside Dos Rios, where she lives now, everyone calls her Miss Lily. She's sort of the matriarch of this farming community that stretches only 4 blocks wide. She runs the community center here.
It's the only thing in town. I mean, before 2005, there was nothing out here. Before they even put in the gasoline station, zero.
So right now, it's the community center and the one stop, the gasoline station.
That's it. Go straight on.
As we walk through the community center, we see 3 high schoolers playing. Oh, no. Some kids making pink slime. And a group of teenagers practicing their rummy cube skills for the upcoming Battle of the Big Brains contest. Are you guys the big brains of the center here? Lucci Sanchez, who's 17, says this community center is pretty much the only place to hang out in Grayson, other than a couple small parks with busted up playground equipment.
There used to be swings right there. They're gone. They've been gone for years. It looks old. It doesn't look good anymore.
So he says he's looking forward to checking out the new park, Dos Rios, tomorrow. It's just 10 minutes from here, and Miss Lily has organized an early morning tour. Maybe too early, at least for Lucci. You just woke up, Lucci?
Yep.
Good to see you.
Just woke up. Good to see you too.
Where's your sun protection? Where's your big hat?
I don't know.
Did you wear sunscreen today?
No.
What? Soon, a dozen people, teenagers, little ones, and parents, who I might add were wearing their sun protection, hit the trail for their first tour of Dos Rios.
Sí, buenos días, mi nombre es Eduardo.
With us was their Spanish-speaking tour guide, Eduardo Gonzalez.
Y pues a celebrar la apertura de este parque.
Eduardo and the other park staff tell us it's essential to the park's mission to engage local families like these with Spanish-language tours, yes, but also with campfire nights and stargazing parties. At this point, we've been walking about 20 minutes down the trail, and Eduardo stops the group and gestures to the right.
Aquí las huertas, ahí mire.
Where old almond trees sit in manicured rows.
Para regar.
And on the left, it's a completely different landscape. A restored floodplain bursting with wild native trees and bushes.
Y así, de volada regresan los pájaros, los conejos.
What a difference, he says. Do you see? All the birds and rabbits have swiftly returned to the land on the left. It's like this little path that we're walking on splits the park between its present and its past. And getting back to the past is the aim of another part of Dos Rios. It's a section of the park that's been set aside for Native Americans.
Majuxus, Leonce Hayapu, Bayaku. My name's Austin Stevenoff.
All right, and you are a member of the Northern Sierra Miwok tribe.
I am.
Remember we met Austin under those majestic oaks? Well, a few years ago, River Partners hired him to help transform this plot of land into a native use garden where, with permission, California tribal members can collect plants for cultural practices.
One of these plants we're standing over right here. Carex barbari, white sedge. They're long rhizomes that grow underneath the ground. And then you take those and use them as wefting material. The thread on a coiled basket.
Austin says his ancestors were forcibly removed from their nearby village a century ago. So it means a lot to him to have a piece of this park that his family can now use as their own.
It looks like a big wheat patch right now, but there's a lot here. There's a lot of meaning here.
Austin gets a little choked up thinking about how now members of his tribe are welcome on this land.
I mean, we need thousands more acres just like this, right? Not for just water, not for habitat, but for the people of the land, for the people that were here long before everybody else.
This park holds promise for so many people, all while restoring native habitat, protecting against flood damage, and replenishing the dwindling groundwater in the region. But compared to the vast Central Valley, this place is tiny. It's just 2.5 square miles, and it took more than a decade to secure the land and transform it, a project that is still in progress. But even so, Julie Rentner says she is optimistic that this place can be a blueprint for many more parks like it.
Well, we've done the planning, we've done the mapping, because you're right, it's a big, huge effort, but there's a lot of people who want to help. So when we think about doing maybe 10 more of those races, we're thinking about just in the next decade, maybe even more.
Right. And we'll come see you in 10 years for 10 more park openings, hopefully.
I tell you, they're ready. Yeah, they're in the works.
For Julie, restoring the land to its past is a way of rethinking the state's future.
At 6:29, you've been listening to All Things Considered on your NPR station, News 88.7.
Support comes from Tacoma, presenting pianists Jeremy Dank and Alexander Cantorov, international string quartets, jazz from Brad Meldau and Christian McBride, and more. More about the 24-25 season is at Tacoma.com. Support comes from Specs Wine, Spirits, and Finer Foods, Texas family-owned and operated since 1962, offering a large selection of wine, spirits, and beers to choose from. Details at specsonline.com. The fun starts here. PBS NewsHour.
Now, more than ever, you need news you can trust.
PBS NewsHour.
Unbiased, in-depth news that delivers substance over sensationalism.
PBS NewsHour.
Cutting through the noise with news that matters. World-class journalism that brings unrivaled national and global perspective home to you.
PBS NewsHour.
Elections, conflict, climate. Trusted news source that provides fair, thoughtful coverage of the events that impact our lives.
PBS NewsHour. Weeknights at 6 on Houston Public Media TV.
Marketplace is supported by C3 Generative AI. Verifiable, traceable answers, secure, hallucination-free, LLM-agnostic, IP liability-free. C3.ai. This is Enterprise AI.
You know how delivery services are always talking about how hard that last mile is? That, but for interest rates. From American Public Media, this is Marketplace.
Marketplace is supported by Amazon Business, focused on offering smart business buying solutions, leading time to focus on growth. More at AmazonBusiness.com. And by Babbel for Business. With over 13,000 hours of language courses, Babbel is helping businesses break down
And the amount that potential homebuyers need is increasing faster than the median income, says Redfin's chief economist Daryl Fairweather.
I think we've been moving towards this place of owning a home being something that is more upper middle class for a long time.
Fairweather says 4 years ago, during a pandemic-era pocket of cheaper housing, 45% of homes were affordable to a household on the local median income. Now it's down to 16%.
So that's a big gap. I mean, it's essentially saying that even if you are solidly in the middle class in America, you will not be able to buy a home.
And even if the Fed cuts interest rates next month, the relief will be temporary, says John Potson, because of a bigger issue.
What we've seen is, over the last decade in this country, a severe underbuilding of inventory. And so we have a severe lack of supply.
Potson is CEO and co-founder of the lending technology firm Maxwell that released the report. He says low rates will lead to more demand, and more demand without more supply means higher prices.
Because now, instead of getting 2 offers on my house, I'm getting 5 offers on my house. I'm getting 10 offers on my house. And so that's just going to exacerbate the pricing affordability challenge.
As for tips, there isn't a silver bullet. Pay down your debt, scrape together some savings, and Potson says buy something, no matter how small or cheap, soon to start accumulating wealth. I'm Kaylee Wells for Marketplace.
Much of the digital world relies on something called open source software. Computer programs where the underlying code is published out on the internet free for developers to take over. Mozilla's Firefox browser and the publishing platform WordPress are just 2 examples, maybe the best one. That is the backdrop for this. There's a big debate in Silicon Valley over whether companies should make artificial intelligence open source. Google and OpenAI are keeping everything pretty much walled off. Meta, though, has gone open source, letting pretty much anybody have access to their powerful large language models, which is mostly what all that. The stakes are high for which company or companies are going to try to dominate AI, but it's also high for the safety of us humans, too. With that said, here's Marketplace's Matt Lett.
Nils Tracy admits his business probably wouldn't exist without Llama. That's the name of Meta's open source AI.
No, I don't think it could. The backing of Meta and the power Meta has to build that model enables us to do this.
Tracy is the founder and CEO of a North Carolina startup called Light. It's basically AI for law firms. It can do things like redact documents or automatically file for copyright protections. Tracy's company copied all of Llama's source code, made some tweaks, and then retrained the AI to write like a lawyer.
We have contracts from a law firm or other types of documents they might have that are written in their style. We will train it off of that, and we will get it to learn that style of writing.
Tracy could have tried to adapt large language models from OpenAI or Google or other AI companies, but without their underlying code, you'd have to trust they weren't misusing his data. Also, they're not free. Are you paying Meta in any way?
No.
How happy are you about that?
Very happy.
That open source model is extremely valuable for anyone downstream who wants to use it to be able to develop a product or a new application.
Elizabeth Seeger is director of digital policy at the think tank Demos. If you're wondering why Meta would spend tens of billions developing its own AI only to give it away for nothing, Seeger says there's an economic strategy behind that. It's called commoditizing the compliment.
Let's say you are a hot dog producer, so you make hot dog buns completely free. So everybody can get their hand on hot dog buns, but then they need to buy your hot dogs.
In this case, Meta's free hot dog buns would be its open source AI. In the future, hot dogs could be data sets Meta will sell you to train it, or Meta hardware the AI runs on. Traditionally with open source software, there's another benefit too. If there's a security problem, the global developer community is there to spot it. Ali Farhadi is CEO of the nonprofit Allen Institute for Artificial Intelligence.
I'd rather live in a world where there is actually a large number of practitioners who know how to fix AI
98.7, you're listening to News 88.7.
Celebrate National Public Radio Day by investing in the station you rely on. When hurricanes hit and power goes out, Houston Public Media is your lifeline. Today, when you give, you can select a hand crank emergency radio as your thank you gift. No matter the weather, we are on the air, keeping you informed with vital news and updates. Your support makes it possible. Support public radio today by giving at HoustonPublicMedia.org or call 888-909-0887.
Support comes from Comcast Business, partnering with companies to help keep their business moving by offering a network of cybersecurity solutions and round-the-clock support. Powering possibilities. Restrictions apply. ComcastBusiness.com. If you took part in our recent fundraiser, take an extra step to have your donation matched. Current and retired employees may be eligible for an employee matching program. Visit HoustonPublicMedia.org/match to search for your company.
This is Marketplace. I'm Kai Rizdal. We turn now to the tax code, which, while maybe not a top-tier issue in this election, what possibly it ought to be, because if the Congress that's elected this fall doesn't make some changes to that tax code at some point next year, Americans' taxes are going to be quite a bit higher come 2026. What's going on is that a whole slew of provisions in the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, the Trump's tax cuts, right? They expire at the end of next year, including what is known as the pass-through deduction. Marketplace's Kimberly Adams reports whether or not it survives could make a big difference for millions of business owners.
Most businesses in the U.S. are pass-through businesses.
Businesses that are organized as sole proprietorships, partnerships, or S corporations.
Neil Bradley is Executive Vice President and Chief Policy Officer at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. For these businesses, rather than the owners taking a straight salary and paying income taxes on that, they instead take a share of the business's profit as their own. Prior to 2017, owners had to pay regular income taxes on that money, but now they get a 20% deduction on some of that income.
So think about small companies, small businesses on main streets all across America.
The Chamber is strongly advocating for an extension of the tax deduction on pass-through income. Bradley says companies that have used it,
they employ about 50% of the entire private sector for-profit workforce.
the pass-through deduction exists because when Congress was trying to cut tax rates for businesses in 2017, it ran into a problem. It was easy enough to just slash the overall rate for big corporations, known as C corporations, which Congress did from 35% to 21%. But what do you do with the profits these smaller companies generate? Garrett Watson is a senior policy analyst at the Tax Foundation.
The main goal of the deduction when it was created in the end of 2017 was to ensure that the tax burden faced by pass-through businesses overall was in the ballpark of the big C corporations.
The pass-through deduction effectively allows certain business owners to exclude up to 20% of their income that passes through their business from federal income tax, up to a certain point. Chai-Cheng Wang, executive director of NYU's Tax Law Center, says the law is really complex.
The simplified IRS flowchart of this thing is 14 steps long, and the pamphlet that Congress's official researchers wrote for lawmakers trying to summarize how it works is 15 pages.
Business owners who take the pass-through deduction end up with a top federal tax rate of just under 30%, while their employees who get paychecks are taxed at up to 37%. Wong says that's encouraged some owners to game the system.
Many high-income filers stop paying themselves income as a type of profit that is not eligible for the deduction and instead pay themselves in a form that is eligible for the deduction.
Tax policy experts are quick to point out the benefits of the deduction are not distributed equally.
Over half of the benefit goes to business owners who have more than $1 million of income.
Samantha Jacoby is Deputy Director of Federal Tax Policy at the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities.
People with over $10 million in income who claim the deduction claimed a $1 million deduction, and that's compared to an average deduction of $7
overall cost of the deduction, it was originally projected to deliver upwards of a $400 billion hit to federal revenues. If it's extended another 10 years, says Garrett Watson at the Tax Foundation, that's another $700 billion.
And while I don't think there's any firm conclusion, there's not a lot of strong evidence that the deduction spurred an above normal amount of investment or economic activity that would have been surprising to folks.
And as we get closer to the provision's expiration date at the end of 2025, Congress will have to decide if keeping the deduction is worth it. In Washington, I'm Kimberly Adams for Marketplace.
During the pandemic, college enrollment is bouncing back. According to the National Student Clearinghouse Data Center, enrollment was up 2.5% last spring. Community colleges led the way, making it more than half of that total overall bump. And the students who are returning to those classrooms today are less interested in earning a bachelor's degree. They're coming more for vocational training and high-tech skills. WBUR in Boston, Carrie Young.
In order to go inside the clean room lab at Middlesex Community College, students and staff, like laboratory technician Veronica Tay, have to pass through a number of safety procedures. Walking over a sticky floor pad is first.
Just helps pick up the dirt off your shoes.
After a thorough hand washing, students put on a long lab coat, a face mask, and safety glasses.
Because you'll end up putting like little booties on, and then we'll cross over the red line as you like put one on.
Tay explains this lab is used by the college's biotechnology students. It's intended to simulate working conditions in this region's pharmaceutical industry. Students even work with live cells.
So we've got CHO, which stands for Chinese hamster ovarian cancer cells. We grow them at 37 degrees Celsius.
The lab work is part of a certificate and associate's degree program in biotechnology at this community college. New graduates often find jobs nearby with starting salaries of over $55,000 a year. And this biotech program has been around for more than 30 years, but officials decided to invest even more into the major when they started planning to build this clean room about 10 years ago. That was around when Massachusetts community colleges were starting to move away from their traditional role of being a stepping stone to a four-year degree. Today, they're more of a training ground for high-tech and vocational jobs in the region.
They are playing an increasing role in linking people directly into employment opportunities, particularly in that modern technician space.
Bob LePage is the Massachusetts Assistant Secretary for Career Education. He says the biggest growth area right now is in new environmentally friendly HVAC technologies, like heat pump installation. Cybersecurity is in demand too.
It's become more visible in part because of market demand, in part because individuals are thirsting for upward mobility.
And recently, the growth in free community college in the area has turbocharged this trend. Maine's free program launched about 2.5 years ago. David Dagler, the president of the Maine Community College System, says a lot of the students enrolling now are interested in vocational programs.
They're looking to become plumbers and electricians. They're looking to become fabricators and precision manufacturers.
In addition to growing the supply of workers with special skills, community college graduates also tend to come from a diverse range of age and cultural backgrounds. Alex Colburn, a director of training at Eversource, says that's benefited the utility company's workforce.
They have a reach into the communities that extends beyond what we can do. How they market to different types of communities extends for us as well.
For Megan Guros, a recent